Okay, so you've had that light bulb moment, right? An idea that could genuinely make a difference in the world. But then you hit a wall. How do you actually make it real? How do you make it official? Well, today we're going to break that down. We're talking about how to turn your passion into a legit, legal nonprofit and how to do it the smart way.
So you've got it all mapped out in your head. The mission, the drive, that vision for real change. Maybe you're thinking about a local animal rescue or a cool arts program for kids, or even a community garden. You know, that initial spark? That's everything. It's the most important piece of the puzzle.
But then you hit the paperwork. Ugh, it's the part that can stop even the best ideas cold. How in the world do you go from a concept to an actual organization that the government recognizes? For a long, long time, that process was a total nightmare.
Okay, Section 1, the nonprofit hurdle. You know, to understand why things are, well, better, but also a little trickier today, we've got to take a step back. For decades, just trying to start a small charity was incredibly hard. One legal scholar actually called the old way needlessly onerous, which is just a fancy way of saying it was a huge, unnecessary pain.
Right, so the end goal for any nonprofit has always been the same, getting that official 501c3 status from the IRS. That's the magic wand, really. It's what makes you tax exempt and what lets your donors actually deduct their contributions. But for years, getting there meant you had to face this beast called Form 1023. It was a monster of an application, so long, so complicated, and it demanded you predict every little detail about your future, sometimes before you'd even figured it out yourself.
Section 2, a radical simplification. Okay, so thankfully, even the government realized this whole thing was a huge problem. It was just too hard. So in response, they came up with a pretty radical solution, something that promised to just cut through all of that red tape. And that big turning point, it happened in 2014. That's the year the IRS rolled out the Form 1023 Easy. Think of it as the easy version, shorter, streamlined, and you could do it all online. It was designed specifically for smaller charities, and man, it was a total game changer. It almost immediately became the new go-to for most people starting out.
And the impact was just huge. I mean, look at this. Research from the University of Pennsylvania Law Review found that something like 70%, 7 out of 10, of all new nonprofit applicants could now use this much simpler form. It was this incredible revolution in just getting your foot in the door. But, and this is a big but, sometimes making things too simple can lead to, well, some unexpected problems. And people were already asking the right questions right from the start. This one comes from a law review back in 2014, the same year the form came out. Is the IRS slashing red tape or opening Pandora's box? Was this just a good thing, or was it about to unleash a bunch of hidden issues? Turns out, that was a very, very good question. Section 3, the hidden compliance gap. And this right here is where the problem lies. This is the Pandora's box part, because making the federal process super easy accidentally created a huge, dangerous blind spot when it comes to the state level. So what is this compliance gap exactly? Let me break it down. It's when a founder, like you, successfully uses that new easy form to get federal tax-exempt status, but your initial state paperwork, the Articles of Incorporation, is actually missing some very specific legal language that the IRS requires. So you get the green light from the feds, but the actual foundation of your organization is built on shaky ground. It's a huge problem. And hey, this isn't just a theory. A big study in the George Washington Law Review from 2022 put some really alarming numbers on this. They looked at the actual state documents of new nonprofits and found, and I'm quoting here, widespread issues with compliance. We're talking about organizations getting that federal stamp of approval, all while their state paperwork was missing the exact clauses the IRS needs to see. The study directly linked this problem back to the simplified federal form. And this really shows you the disconnect in a single picture. Federal approval rates? Way up, because that easy form is fast and simple. But state document compliance? It's way down. And why is that? It's because the new easy federal process kind of just assumes you've already done the state-level stuff perfectly, and that's a dangerous assumption. So here is the trap, plain and simple.
When you go to your Secretary of State's website, the standard form you find is usually just for creating a general nonprofit. It often doesn't have the very specific wording the IRS demands for 501c3 status, and the system assumes you know that. The responsibility to add that language? It's 100% on you. Section 4. How to build it right. Okay, so that's the problem. And yeah, it's a serious one. But here's the good news. It is completely 100% avoidable. So let's shift gears and talk about how to do this the right way. How to build your nonprofit on a solid foundation and close that compliance gap before it even opens. Okay, first things first, the order of operations here is absolutely critical. You can't skip ahead. Step 1, you have to incorporate at the state level. That means filing your Articles of Incorporation. Step 2, you get your EIN, your employer identification number, from the IRS. It's kind of like a social security number, but for your organization. And only then, after those two things are done, do you apply to the IRS for your 501c3 status. And that first step, the state incorporation, that's the one we've got to get perfect. All right, this right here is the fix. This is the crucial bit. Your state's standard form, it probably has a really generic purpose clause. You have to add your own specific language saying your activities are exclusively for things the IRS approves of. Charitable, educational, scientific purposes. Then you have to look for the dissolution clause. That's the part that says what happens to the money and assets if your nonprofit ever shuts down. If the state form doesn't say anything, you must add a clause that dedicates everything left over to another 501c3. So just to hammer this home, there are two must-have clauses that you, the founder, have to add yourself. First, that limited purpose clause. Think of it as putting a fence around your activities, making it clear you're only doing what the IRS allows. Second, the dissolution of assets clause. This guarantees that if things don't work out and the nonprofit has to close, any leftover assets go to another charity, not into someone's pocket. They continue to serve the public good. Look, if you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. Getting this right happens at one single moment. It's in your initial, state-level Articles of Incorporation. That is the place. Getting it right there, on day one, is the single most important thing you can do to avoid massive headaches later on. It's what sets you up for real long-term success. So yeah, the process today is simpler, no doubt about it. But that simplicity means the responsibility is actually greater. It's on you, the founder, to build that foundation correctly. But now you know. You know about the compliance gap, and that's half the battle. So the only question left is, are you ready to build it right from day one?